everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to another Makers with Heart video. This month, the Makers with Heart are featuring Wildberry. It's the Close My Heart color of the year. And there's lots of products made in this color. So there's the ink pad and the cardstock. So that's the light and the dark side of Wildberry. There's some sequins and some floral sequins and enamel dots and gems and ribbon and shimmer trim. Okay, and then also the medium, the middle color of the tri-blend marker in the bright pink shades is also a good match. Okay, so this month, Close My Heart is featuring a bundle in Wildberry, and you can get it during the month of April at a special price. And for my first card, I'm going to show you how to make this heart image on a card. And the stamp set that I'm going to use is from the bundle that's called Circles and Patterns. Okay, so it comes with these background stamps and the thin cuts I'll be using on my second card. All right. And then my sentiment is from For All Occasions. Okay, so let's get started. I've mounted the stamp that has all the small dots. It's like the Swiss dot pattern onto my block. And I'm going to create a background paper using Wildberry ink on white daisy cardstock, cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm just gonna stamp this pattern repeatedly and cover this entire panel. Okay, so that's all done. And then I'm going to bring in my Misty, and I've loaded the other 3 stamps, the background stamps, into it. And I'm going to stamp in Versamark ink on this, the dark side of Wildberry cardstock. And I'm going to heat emboss this pattern. So I'm hitting it with some anti-static powder and then stamping that out. So I'm going to make a bunch of these. So I'll show you the first one. The first one, I'm going to sprinkle some shimmering pearl embossing powder on it. It's kind of a clear embossing powder with a shimmer to it. So I'm just sprinkling and then tapping off the excess. And then I'll heat it up and melt that embossing powder. And then off camera, I'll do the same exact thing using gold embossing powder. Okay, so I'll speed this up real quick. And we'll melt all that embossing powder. It kind of disappears, but you can see it in the light, the different patterns. It's nice and sparkly. Okay, so I've also done that in gold. Now I have some ballerina, and I'm going to stamp these patterns using Wildberry ink on ballerina cardstock. So we're basically creating different types of patterned papers by stamping. Get that stamped out, and then I'm going to stamp it also in the dot pattern on ballerina. Okay, so now we have all our stamping done. I'm going to bring in these pieces of embossed cardstock and I'm going to cut them down. All right, so that first pattern, I'm just going to trim it out, and then I'm going to cut 2 squares at 1 inch by 1 inch that have this pattern on it. And then I'm going to take that square and put it back into my trimmer at an angle and line up those 2 corners and then cut again. So you have 2 triangles, all right? And then I'll do it again. And then I'll cut out a whole bunch. So you need a total of 20 triangles. So I've got 5 patterns and 4 triangles of each, all right? So now I'm going to line up my background paper on my Versamat, and I'm just bringing that first triangle down by about 1/2 inch. And then I'm setting it up in that pattern, and then I'm adding another pattern and setting that up. So I've got just a smidge on either side of those corners to center my heart shape on my card base, right? So now I'm just picking out different patterns so they're randomly placed, and just kind of creating my design here. So I'm going to show the whole thing. And really the hardest part is just picking which pattern you want to put where with this design. But just get everything laid out before you start gluing things down so that you can change your mind if you want to. I'm just laying all these different patterns out. And creating my heart shape. Okay, now I've got everything glued down, and then we can start creating our card. So I'm using the middle color of this tri-blend marker, and I'm just tracing a line around the edges because my panel is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I don't really have enough room to mat it on another piece. So I'm kind of creating a faux mat by drawing my line around the edges. Okay, so now I'm going to do my sentiment, and I'm going to stamp in intense black ink, and I'm going to create a banner. So I'm using the light side of ballerina. I'm going to stamp Happy Mother's Day. There's so many different sentiments on this for all occasions stamp set, so you can really choose whatever you want. But since we're getting close to Mother's Day, I'm going to make a Mother's Day card. So then I'm just going to trace and color in the insides of the word happy with the tri-blend marker. And now I'm going to create my banner. So I'm just trimming around my sentiment. I'm not sure if I want to dovetail both sides or one side, and I decided ultimately just one side. So I'm trimming around that sentiment, and then I'm going to create my dovetail. So just snip vertically, and then take each corner to meet that snip. And then I'm going to trace around it, just kind of doodle a border using a gel pen. Okay, so now we have our sentiment, so now we can start building our card. Pretty simple from here. Just put everything down. This is the Close to My Heart tape runner. I'll just add that to my card front. And then I'll pop my sentiment with some foam tape. And then I'm going to bring in some of these wildberry flower sequins, and they're self-adhesive, and they come in 2 sizes. So I'm going to just scatter a whole bunch of them around my card front, the big ones and the little ones. And one more. And then to add even more shimmer, I'm going to bring in some of these clear shimmer sparkle gems, and then put them inside the center of each of those flowers, just for some extra bling. And there's my finished card. So cute. I love this pattern. It's so easy, but it looks complicated. And you can do it, you can size it down for your card. So if you want to do a scrapbook page, you just cut those squares at 2.5 inches. Okay, next card, I'm going to use the same stamp set, but this time I'm just going to use one of the patterned blocks, and then I'm going to use stickers from the Love Story collection. So I'm going to stamp out this pattern on wildberry cardstock, and I'm going to heat emboss in gold. So I'm just going to use the same pattern and stamp a whole bunch of them. So we'll do one, and then I'll do the rest of them off screen. So this time I'm going to use gold. Sprinkle that embossing powder on, and then heat it all up and melt it. Okay, so I've got 2 of those done, and now I'm going to cut them out using this circle thin cut, and I want the center of that looks kind of like a diamond. So I'm going to cut all 8 of those and keep just the center. I can use the other pieces for another card. Okay, so those are all cut out, and then I'm going to bring in some ballerina cardstock. This is the light side, and I'm going to cut 8 circles. So run those through. Okay, so I'm going to cut a piece of white daisy at 4 by 5 1/4, and a piece of black cardstock at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm going to create my little circles. So I'm just going to glue this center piece on top of the ballerina cardstock. So I'll do that for all of them. Skip ahead in a second. Okay, so I need 7 of these. And before I glue those down, I'm going to stamp the same pattern in wildberry on white daisy to create kind of a background patterned paper. I'll do that all over that panel. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment. It says, thinking of you. So I'm going to stamp that in wildberry. And then I'll create a banner and I'll doodle around the edges in black. Okay, now we can start building our card. So I have my A2 card base, and I'm just going to put down my black cardstock panel. And then I'm going to glue all of these circles on this stamped panel in that pattern. Okay, so we'll get a couple down and then I'll do the rest off camera. So I'm just going to glue all of those down. And then I'll pick it up and turn it over and trim off the excess that went over the edges. Okay, so I'll just trim around. And then I've got my patterned panel for the front of my card. Okay, and we'll add that on top of the black cardstock base. So now it has a border of black around it. So off camera, I've colored in this flower with tri-blend markers. I'm going to pop that with foam tape. And then I'll pop my sentiment with foam tape as well. So be sure to check out the playlist at the end of this video that has all of the Makers with Heart videos, and you can see all the cool things that they've done with wildberry. We'll add our sentiment, and then I'm going to scatter some of these wildberry sparkle gems around the front of my card. And off screen, I'll add a little ribbon, a bow of gold embellishing thread to my flower. Got a lot going on, but it's all created with cardstock. There's my finished card. So cute. So I'll make a list of all the supplies that I used with links in the description below. And don't forget about that bundle that you can get at a special price during the month of April. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And thanks for watching.